In today's video, we're going to talk about 11 things you should never do in Japan. What is going on, YouTube? Greetings from my apartment here in Cape Town, South Africa. It's been 12 months since I left on my full-time travel journey, and I've really enjoyed doing the video series called Never Do This in certain countries. So I figured I'd go back and do videos about what not to do in countries that I lived in for at least 30 days. In today's video, we're gonna talk about Japan. I reached back to my Japanese friends, Luke and Yukako, to help me put this list together, and they helped me come up with 11 things you should never do in Japan. So if you don't mind, go down in the comments and say, thanks Luke, thanks Yukako for helping Kevin put this list together. The first thing you should never do in Japan is never cross the street until the crosswalk indicator says you can. Even if there isn't a car within 20 miles, don't cross the street. If you do, some old lady on the other side of the street is either gonna give you a little X, or she's gonna be really mad and give you the big X, letting you know you did something wrong. Seriously, there is absolutely no jaywalking in Japan. The second thing to never do in Japan is never wear clothes in a Japanese onsen. Many tourists want an authentic Japanese experience, so they go to an onsen. Onsens are bathhouses similar to Roman baths. The biggest difference is you never wear clothes in an onsen. Never. They are absolutely not allowed. The bathhouses are separated by gender if that matters to you. And another little side note, if you have tattoos, you probably won't be allowed in an onsen unless you can cover them up. The third thing to never do in Japan is never pass food chopstick to chopstick. I could probably do a whole video series on what not to do with chopsticks in Japan. One of the main rules is never pass food chopstick to chopstick. The proper way to do it is to let them reach over with their chopsticks and pick up the food that you're giving them. Another related item, when you're sharing food, you never transfer the food from the shared plate to your mouth. You set the food on your plate and then you pick it back up and put it in your mouth. The fourth thing to never do in Japan is never wear your shoes indoors. This is a popular rule in most of Asia, and Japan is no exception. You also shouldn't wear your shoes in some hospitals, hotels, shop dressing rooms, and religious shrines. A good rule of thumb is if you see a bunch of shoes stacked up, you should probably take your shoes off at that point. The fifth thing you should never do in Japan is never expect Western-sized hotel rooms and apartments. Japan only has so much land, so consequently they are very efficient with how they use it. Japanese hotel rooms and Airbnb rentals are much smaller than you were used to, and most likely your bed's gonna be smaller than a queen size. That's normal, so just be prepared. The sixth thing to never do in Japan is never eat food while transiting. In Japan, it's rude to eat food outside of designated areas. Even if you get street food, you should eat in the area designated for eating near the food stall. The same applies to drinking beverages. There are tons of vending machines in Japan. The proper etiquette is to drink the beverage near the vending machine and then deposit the bottle in the recycle bin next to the vending machine. Every vending machine has a recycle bin next to it. The seventh thing to never do in Japan is never use the hot towel you get at restaurants on your face. I did this. This is a big faux pas. Those towels are just for your hands, and people will look at you weirdly if you use it for your face. Believe me, I know, I did it. The eighth thing you should never do in Japan is never leave a tip. This is kind of an odd one because even in places where tips aren't customary, they're usually appreciated. That is not the case in Japan. Tipping is considered an insult, and any service charge will be added to your bill. If you leave just a little bit of change on your table, the server is gonna chase you down on the road to bring it back to you. Another little side note about Japan, you never pay at the table, you pay on your way out at the cash register. The ninth thing to never do in Japan is never serve yourself alcohol. You can serve your companions alcohol, but never serve yourself. That's considered selfish and rude. After you fill your companions' cups, they should return the favor. The 10th thing to never do in Japan is never hand items like money and credit cards with only one hand. That's the custom in Japan. You use two hands to pass items from one person to another. The 11th thing to never do in Japan, and probably my favorite rule, is never be late to things. Unlike other countries I visited where timeliness isn't really valued, Japan runs like clockwork. Things happen when they say they're gonna happen, so make sure you're on time. Okay, so those are the 11 things to never do in Japan. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. And thanks again to Luke and Yukako for helping me put this list together. If you have anything to add, make sure you comment below. Thanks for watching.